everyone's listening to this, like all 4 people are probably like, oh, fucking duh.
Hey, more than 4 people listen. Gosh.
I mean, simultaneously. I mean, just right this. No. Sorry. I'm thinking it's probably more the interviewee than like people tune into this, but they're like,
yeah, tune out.
Tom Hill, skip.
Who are you?
So I'm Tom. Sorry, I did have to do a better one. So let's do it again.
All right, introduce yourself.
Okay. Hey, Elijah, this is Tom. Hey, I'm Tom Hill. I play drums in the band Heavy Sweater. I'm from Bismarck, North Dakota, and I've known Elijah since I've been like 15 years old when we played in the band Sugar and Spikes together.
Well, let's go chronological.
Okay, so chronologically, the bands that I've been in since the very, very, very first band I was ever in was with the guy Mark Alexander. So we were in this band called Nose Polish. Lasted, I think, for like 2 months. Then I was in a band Actar 911 with Nick Keanu and Brandon Marbach and Mark Alexander. And then I was in Sugar and Spikes with you.
Yeah.
Then from there I was in Toxic Shock Syndrome. And then I was in a band called War on God, Fine Young Knives, then Dan K and Black Casket, then Go Murphy, then Heavy Sweat. I think that's it. Yeah. So
yeah, that's
basically like the revolving cast of characters that I've probably played shows with. You know a lot of them like from Bismarck.
Yeah.
Honda presents what could possibly be the longest test drive ever recorded. The car, Joanne's brand new Honda Civic hatchback. The driver, Dad.
Result.
My first car was a 1984 Honda Civic hatchback. It was baby kind of metallic blue. And it was a 5-speed manual. And that's really, really why I loved that car and wanted that car, is because it was a straight stick. And I wanted to make sure that my first car was a stick shift.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was like my mom took me and my brother out religiously, like in the parking lot of the Capitol. They had a 5-speed manual transmission car. And she was like super patient and like taught us how to drive that thing.
And that's how you learned to drive.
Basically, yeah. And then the other way I learned to drive manual transmission was with Josh Nordwall. So he had a 1984 Isuzu Trooper, and that was a 4-speed, and the clutch on that thing just was almost gone completely. Like it was like you almost had to let it completely out to get it to engage. But once he got his license, and he got his before me, so he would drive that Trooper around, and then he and I would go to, you know, the hill. It's probably not there anymore, but you remember where Buck's Roadhouse used to be?
Yeah.
Then there was like a house right south of that. It was like the Front Street house, and there used to be punk shows there.
Yeah,
like long before you and I went to shows even, I think. Like in the early 90s, like in late 80s. But there was a hill right to the left of that, and it was really steep. And I remember Josh and I used to park on top of that hill, and we would like let the Trooper just roll backwards, like all the way down that hill, and then we'd figure out like how to engage the clutch.
Really?
Yeah, and like we almost burned the clutch out, and like we were just terrible, just like grinding through gears just to get up there. But it was cool because nobody was ever there, and like he and I were just there with each other. And so it was actually, when I was thinking about driving and like just my first car, that's always a memory that comes up. It was really fun because with my mom, who was like really super supportive on driving lessons, it was me and Josh learning basically together to drive manual transmission.
Yeah, Bismarck at night was really quiet. It used to be.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No. I mean, definitely it's changed. Like, and you and I were like just even talking about how you leave certain things for a couple of years and come back. And like, I haven't lived in Bismarck since 2000. And so I've regularly been back, but even in the past 10 years, I think it's changed a lot. That, I mean, I still obviously recognize it, but it's definitely like there's more
Come and Go just closed.
Oh,
our old hangout
say
spot.
ain't so, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, is it like, did it get rebranded, or did they put a bank there or something?
It's still closed right now, and it was pretty recent, couple months ago. But just overnight. Boom,
an
gone.
investment opportunity.
Oh, yeah?
Don't you think? I mean,
I don't know.
you want to go in?
I don't think so.
Okay, fine.
The ghosts of our past should just
Be
fade
there.
away.
Yeah, I totally agree. Probably the most notable thing about my first car is that I didn't really have it for that long. It was awesome. Like I loved driving it around. So got my first car. It was the 84 Honda Civic hatchback. And I remember I had been like talking to my dad, like conning him and my mom about like why I needed a car. I could get a job. You wouldn't have to drive me anywhere. So it was the thing of independence. And I remember like, I think my dad and mom put like a $1,500 price tag on. That's how much we'll spend on your first car, which in 1999 seemed like a heck of a lot of money to me.
Right.
Right. And that like, I don't remember having to buy my first car. I don't. I think honestly it was a gift from my parents. So like, I think I was pretty fortunate in that regards. I think I had to pay something towards my second car that I was forced to get because of what happened to my first car. Mm-hmm. But I think, my first car was a gift. So I was like looking around and
that lasted 3 months, you're saying.
Yeah, 3 months tops. Right. So like, but yeah, so we went down, it was at Expressway Honda. It was the Honda dealership that was on Expressway between 7th and 9th, I think, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and then so like it was
7th
like
and
right south of Kirkwood Mall.
Right.
And like that guy had sold my parents like their car. So my dad kind of knew the guy, and I was like, oh man, this is the car I want. And it was basically the car that was in the price range that my dad would buy me. It wasn't a complete junky heap of crap. And it was quasi-reliable, and it was a 5-speed, so I loved it.
Okay.
And so we got it, and I remember the guy, I think it was like $1,300 is what, and then my dad's like, well, do you think that's a fair price? And he was trying to, I think, get me to like, wheel and deal with the guy. Yeah, to like show my business skills. And I'm like, put a full tank of gas in it. And he's like, yeah, we normally do that. And I was like, well, okay, well, we'll buy it then. And my dad's like, all right, I guess we'll basically spend $1,300. Good job, dumbass. So, but yeah, so I remember getting that. And again, it must have been in the fall of 99 or something like that. Because shortly thereafter then, because I had my new car, I got a job that I was going to use my new car to help me make money, and that was delivering Chinese food.
Oh, okay.
And so
I was thinking pizza.
No. So if you remember the Golden Dragon,
Yes.
I think now the Blarney Stone is there,
Okay.
or something. So again, like talking about how it's changed, but Golden
Didn't
Dragon.
Josh find a rock in his food? At the Golden Dragon?
Dude, so I have so many horror stories because when I didn't deliver food for them, I washed dishes and like helped clean up. And I know this is a podcast, but I'm definitely using air quotes on clean up. I mean, it was horrible. So I don't remember, but there used to be, if you remember at the Golden Dragon, there was the whole like, there was like the normal kind of just eat side, right? And it just had like booths, and it was kind of like an aisle. But then it had a whole second half to the restaurant, and there was a pool table there, and then it actually had a staircase that walked up to a couple of apartments.
Yeah.
I do remember one memory of us after one of our Sugar and Spike shows, and this was before I worked at Golden Dragon. But we had like the terrorist plan that we were going to go to the Golden Dragon with our band money, because we had made probably like $100 from like the show the night before. So we went to the buffet on a Saturday, and I remember Josh brought a big army backpack. And
Yes.
We brought a bunch of Tupperware.
Yeah.
And like, I think we snuck in.
That was like a 4-foot bag.
Yeah. And like, we somehow got it in there, but with like a bunch of Tupperware containers. And I remember, I think we snuck in some vodka probably. And like, but yeah, we all paid for the buffet with band money. And then we just like put a ton of leftovers in the Tupperware and then smuggled them out. And we had food for days. And like, as high schoolers, I thought that was pretty ballsy. But
Yeah. That is awesome.
yeah. So Golden Dragon though, I always thought they had the best chicken fried rice though, like the most authentic.
Sure.
That was my take on it. That or Hong Kong, they also had really good. And like I was super picky. I didn't really like Chinese food or like, Asian food at all because I just liked fried chicken and rice. I mean, I wasn't going to eat vegetables. But anyway, so I get a job delivering Chinese food and washing dishes at the Golden Dragon. And it was going from fall into winter. And so obviously roads were kind of getting worse out as the winter went on. But like, I actually prided myself on like, so one thing my dad taught me how to do really well driving a straight stick was do what he called make square corners. And so what you do is you'd accelerate really fast going down the street.
Yeah.
And then right as you were about to turn the corner, you'd downshift. And so you'd downshift from like 3 to 2. And then you would do what he called double clutching. And so you'd rev the engine. So you'd put the clutch in, shift down into neutral.
Okay.
Rev the gas up, and then put the clutch back and like slam it down into second. So then you really goose your RPM. So your tires kind of squeal a little bit. And then right as you turn and do that, then you pull the e-brake. And then you just basically do a 90-degree turn. And then you let the e-brake off. And then you let the clutch out. You just pop the clutch and then you got enough RPMs and you're in a low enough gear and you just go straight. But it works really great on snowy roads.
Sure. That's so Fast and Furious type shit.
Yes, but from a middle-aged dad, right? Telling his teenage son like how to pull square corners with a manual transmission. So that my dad did that pretty regularly for me and my brother. And so like I got really good at, I thought, doing those. And it kind of aided me on the snowy streets of Bismarck and Mandan, like when I was delivering Chinese food, because I had to like get there in time. And I do have I don't know that I was the best delivery driver. I mean, clearly for what I'm getting to, like I was not the best. I did not excel at the skill of driving as I thought I did. So I didn't really know Bismarck Mandan that well anyway. I mean, I knew like my streets and my neighborhoods. And then I knew like some of my, family members' neighborhoods or like some of my friends' neighborhoods. Right. But I didn't know it intricately well. And like, I was kind of new to driving, and so, you'd kind of take your main roads like, Washington and Interstate or whatever. So I was supposed to make a delivery to some guy out on Old Red Trail in Mandan, right? So like where the 7 Seas is.
Wait, you deliver out that far?
Yeah. So this is great. Yeah. So from downtown Bismarck, we would deliver out to Old Red Trail.
That's crazy.
There was no radius. I mean, I think like the owner or like the manager had like kind of a circle basically drawn around like where we delivered to, but it was fucking basically to Wilton, almost, it seemed like it, but like it wasn't that far. But yeah, so
I delivered pizza for Domino's in Mandan, and I hated going to Old Red Trail.
So yeah,
and there was one spot at the way end of it, and they never fucking tipped.
So we might be
Not
talking.
Once. It's so weird. But anyway.
So I had memorized it, and again, this is way before GPS, right? So he gives me the address, and then he had like basically taught me how to read, a grid map. And I'm like, okay, which again seems really obvious now, but I was like 16 years old and didn't really have any experience doing that. So I'm like memorizing like, okay, get off at this exit, and then you're going to take your first left, and it's like you're going to the 7 Seas on Old Red Trail, but then you're going to have to do something. And I just couldn't find the guy's house. Yeah. And it's easily been 45 minutes to an hour now. And the owner at the time had given me a work cell phone, right? So which is pretty new. So I think it was even like in a bag. But I had a way to get a hold of Henry, who is the owner of Golden Dragon. I'm like, dude, I have no idea where the hell I'm at. I'm out on Old Red Trail. Can you give me the number of the guy who ordered the food, and maybe I can call him and meet him somewhere, because I didn't even have the guy's number. Finally, I talked to the guy, and he's like, just meet me on the corner here and here, and just give me the damn food. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we do that, and finally I'm like, oh, hey, sorry about that. Anyway, like it's like $46 and, whatever. And I think he just gave me $40, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I pulled the food out of the styrofoam container, and the food had like gotten so greasy, and it just soaked through the bag and just fell out onto the snow right in front of him. I'm like, I'm sorry. And then I just got in my car and left. And so I didn't offer to like give him his money back.
Yep.
I didn't say like, didn't offer to help pick it up. I'm like, yeah, I'm out. So I just turned around and left. And yeah, needless to say, like the dude called the owner and he's like, he chewed me out for, basically being an idiot and not knowing where the hell I was supposed to go. But,
Right.
but it leads, so I kind of experiences like that. So I definitely like had,
That is
like,
so far. That is wild. I had no idea.
well, like, so the other one, so we also delivered down to the University of Mary.
Okay.
And this was before the road got changed into a 4-lane,
Okay.
right? Because it is
Yeah.
it's 2 lanes out and 2 lanes back, right?
Yep.
So back in 99, and this was before they redid Airport Road. So it was just a 2-lane. So basically when you turned right on Airport Road, there was the Holiday Station. Maybe there still is. There's a gas station.
Yeah. It's still there.
Yeah, and then you turn right. But that was just a 2-lane road. And so it went straight. And I remember this distinctly because I guess the whole reason we delivered out to you, Mary, and I know this so well, is because this is how I led up to me not having my new car, my very first car. This is how the last night I had it. So we were supposed to make a delivery out to the University of Mary, and it was like right as we closed. And so the other delivery driver actually lived past you, Mary, and was going to take that delivery to you, Mary, on his way home, which would have made sense.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I'm like, I think I was tired of washing dishes and it was the end of the night and I like wanted to get out and drive around and potentially like make one last tip. So I'm like, oh, I'll take it. And Henry was like, well, I think Mike's going to take it. This is Mike. Oh no, he didn't live there. It was the boyfriend. So you remember Dan Reitz,
Yeah.
right? So good friends with Dan Reitz. Dan had an older sister named Sarah, and Sarah's boyfriend worked for Golden Dragon as well.
All right.
And so Sarah's boyfriend was going out there that night anyway to see Sarah. And he's like, well, I'll just take it because I'm going to go hang out with Sarah anyway at their house. And they lived south of you, Mary, right? So he was supposed to go, but for whatever reason, I decided to. I'm driving out on Airport Road and it's like really starting to snow. I was kind of like, oh man, this will be fun as I go on Airport Road because I'll gun it and then if you remember
You're
before,
going to do your Tokyo drift shit.
yeah, totally. Yeah. And so I'm like driving and I remember there was a sharp left turn that kind of went around. I think there was a mobile home park. There probably still is, but it like went around the mobile home park. And then I remember it like, at least in my mind, and this is the way I remember it, the road went east-west and then it sharply turned to the south again. And that's when you started going by the hangars of the airport. If you're like, and again, I can just remember this clearly in my head. So I kind of do like the Tokyo drift shit around like the left hand side or the left turn. And then I'm getting speed going straight for the right hand turn. And I slow down and I'm like, oh man, it's a little slick here. And so I start the turn like way too early. And I basically do a 270. Like,
Yeah.
because I'm going straight and I do, and then I like magically stop facing the other, like exactly where I should be. But I did like a 270-degree turn accidentally because I like overcorrected too much. And the thing I said, like, I'm just stopped then like right in the middle of the road. And like, I killed my car because like I let the clutch pop out while I was trying to brake and like it just killed the engine. And so I'm like just sitting there. I can't believe this is true, but I wasn't buckled up at the time. And so like, I mean, this is in 1984. So like the seatbelt sensor didn't really give a shit, right? If you buckled up or not.
Yeah.
You know, it was just saying, oh yeah, you're not buckled up, but it never like dinged
Beeped
at
or
you, you know,
anything.
like new cars do. Yeah. So then I'm like, maybe I should buckle up. And so then I proceeded to buckle up, started my car up, and I'm like, all right, maybe don't drive so stupid because like it's snowing out, you know, and you could get yourself hurt and you should have been buckled up. So then I'm driving and again, you go up You Mary Hill, it goes up and it kind of turned a little bit, I think, to the left, but then the hill crests and then right on the backside of the hill is You Mary College. And then take a right and I was supposed to make the delivery to the dorms. I'm going up and it's still snowing and there's like those snow ruts, like, you know, like before they like plow the road really well, but you can tell that there's been like traffic. And so it's just partially ground down to the pavement, but not quite there. And so I'm driving up and like, I remember like downshifting from 5th to 4th and like I'm driving up and I'm like, oh, kind of squirrely up here. And like right as I get to the top of the hill, like my tires slid out and it like basically popped me, almost like if you think about like a set of train tracks, right? It just kind of popped me into the oncoming set of snow tracks. And I'm like, oh shit. And right at the top of the hill, I met like, I think it was a 1995 Pontiac Grand Am and just smashed into it head on going like 45, 50 miles an hour.
Damn.
I just remember, yeah, like the lights like coming up right at the top of the hill. I'm like, oh,
You can't turn nothing. You're
fuck.
just
No.
Yeah.
And
Pretty
like,
quick.
yeah, like I think I remember from what it looked like, I think I tried to downshift one more time from 4th into 3rd, but I actually have pictures of this. And so when I hit the other person, my car actually like kind of the back end bent up kind of like a sandwich and like, and it kind of like crumpled in like an accordion a little bit. So like the back end almost kind of came up and like, I mean, it didn't hit, but it definitely came off the ground and it crumpled the hood or the top frame into like a V. But I went forward so hard, I bent my steering wheel in half. Like I pushed it down into the dash where like the speedometer was.
Yeah.
And then I pushed my gear shifter too all the way into my stereo.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I like sitting there just like, oh my fucking God, what happened? And like my windshield's busted out, like it's just cracked completely in half. And I'm like kind of covered in glass and I'm like, fuck. And so I got the door open and like miraculously, I'm like, my neck really hurt and like I was definitely in shock, but I'm like, I can walk and I'm like, I'm good, I think. And so I walk over to the lady I hit because she was clearly in her lane and I was like definitely fucking in hers. And like, so I open up like her door and she's sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, are you okay? And like, she was like, yeah, this happens to me about once a year. So
what the fuck?
And I was like, what? Oh my God. Like, I am so sorry that not only have I just about killed you, ma'am, but this has happened to you multiple times. Like, this is terrible. And so she was okay, but she really smashed her knee apparently into like the dashboard, like so it would have been like her left knee, like really got smashed into the dashboard. And she was buckled up, thankfully, too. At that time, like I didn't really know what to do. And I honestly don't remember how this happened because I don't think I had a cell phone. Like I know I did for some things, but I don't think I had a cell phone. And maybe she did, but I'm honestly like that was kind of blurry. The next thing that I kind of remember is that there was a volunteer fire department that came out and it was a yellow fire truck. And so it was, and I don't remember where the volunteer like fire department, it was like Bisman or something, but it wasn't the normal fire people. Right. I'm looking for clues in case you know.
No, I don't.
You're like, no. Okay. But I remember like sitting there because I was back in my car and the guy's like, he came up and he's like, you know, how are you? And I'm like, well, I think I'm okay. And he's like, does anything hurt? And I was like, yeah, my neck. And so then he puts his hands around my neck immediately. Like, so he's like leaning in through the busted out window, like on my driver's side. And I say my neck hurts. And he like immediately grabs my neck. And like, I now know that like he was trying to make sure that like my neck didn't move and that it was stable.
Okay.
But like the way that he just grabbed it,
yeah,
I was like, dude, like, don't choke me. I'm just in a car accident. Like, please, you're scaring me. And he's like, well, don't move. You could have a fractured neck. And it actually turns out later when I got x-rayed that he was right. Mm-hmm. So I got whiplash so hard from going forward, thankfully, using the seatbelt, then that caught me. Then I snapped back. And then like when I apparently came back, your spine kind of goes back together. It chipped one of the ends of my vertebrae a little bit.
Oh, geez. Like, okay.
So that wasn't, I mean, yes, you technically broke your neck, but I just kind of chipped a vertebrae off or kind of splintered one. Oh, man. I was thinking about this though too. You remind me, I have to tell you a story about Dawes because he was ruthless to me after this. But anyway, so, but yeah, so then I was sitting there, and then they called the actual ambulance, and the actual ambulance came out, and then they put me in the ambulance, and I remember, the guys were like, they were kind of talking amongst themselves. It was the volunteer, like, rescue guy, and I think the police at the time then were like, well, what should we do with the cars? And so the volunteer EMS guy was like, came over and he's like, so what do you want us to do with your car? And I was like, could you tow it to Honda so they can fix it? And the guy just looks at me and he's like, I meant what junkyard? And I was like, you can't fix it? And he's like, okay. And like he knew like but I was like grief stricken that like my car was like I'm
I
like
just got it.
yeah, like, and I had worked to put in with the help of Dan Reitz. I had bought a brand new CD player. I had gotten some, I think they were called Serwin Vegas, but they were 6x9s, and we put them in my car. Maybe that was in my Mazda. I don't think I had that in my Honda. No, I didn't. No, I'm getting cars mixed up. Sorry. I should have been more prepared for this. But no, I was still grief-stricken that was basically the end of my car, my very first car. And so then I had to call my mom and dad. But I was actually just talking to my mom about this past weekend. She remembers it that she had just gotten out of a bathtub. She put her like pajamas on, and she got a phone call, and it was me. And I was like, oh, hey, Mom. And she's like, oh, hey, what are you doing? You off work yet? And I was like, yep, I'm done. And I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I just took my makeup off and like got my pajamas on. I'm like, okay, well, would you mind coming to the emergency room? And she's like, no, I mean, I don't mind what's going on. I was in a car accident, and I think I broke my neck. And so I need you and Dad to maybe come down and help out for a little bit. And like, but yeah, I was just like more matter of fact about it. Like, yep, that's kind of what it was. But yeah, so then I had to wear a neck brace for 6 weeks or 6 or 8 weeks. And then like otherwise, I mean, they've never really done anything for it. It's just, it's just basically had sore neck for 6 weeks. And apparently the lady that I hit had some knee surgery too. I can't remember if it was like at a follow-up appointment, I randomly saw her at a clinic, like at a PT clinic, and she was doing PT for her leg. And I was like doing PT for my neck. And I can't remember if I talked to her there, but she like, thankfully I never got sued. That was maybe like the day. And like, it was an honest to God accident. And actually I didn't even get cited for anything because like the sheriff came in and he's like, well, you broke your neck and like you're 16, you were like driving for work.
Right.
And you made an honest mistake and like you probably shouldn't have been doing that. Like you should, again, hindsight, like Sarah's boyfriend definitely should have just like delivered the Chinese food. And it's not his fault, but I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, why didn't I just go home and like, I don't know, watch History Channel or something, right? But I'm like, no, got to go do this. So yeah, that's probably the most memorable thing that happened with my first car. And like, I mean, definitely a formative experience. Like driving on snow still kind of worries me. I'm getting better about it now that I'm like 42. Like it doesn't bother me as much, but like there's still like times when like, if you kind of like, I think everybody has felt it, but like your car just shimmies a little bit or like it just fishtails, like just even the tiniest bit. And like,
yeah, it's a butt pucker.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, me and Nordwell used to call it the dick tickle, right?
Oh, okay.
But it was kind of that, like when you drop on like a roller coaster. Yeah. And for you kind of get that, and it's, yeah. So you sort of get that, or it's the butt pucker. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a world of distractions and unexpected turns, a car should be like a friend you don't have to talk to. The Mazda 626 is engineered to feel just that way, with the ability to make you feel in control. At the same time, it makes you feel relaxed. The 626 from Mazda.
result.
Yeah. Then I got a Mazda 626 shortly after that. And then I had that all throughout high school.
Yeah.
And that was a blue one. It was a 4-door. Because the Civic was a hatchback 2-door. That was really before we played in bands. But like I remember carting drums and shit around in my Mazda.
Yeah, I was going to ask if
Yeah.
you originally got the hatchback for moving drums or
No,
why-
actually, no.
just because it was a 5-speed, really.
I think it's just because it was a 5-speed, and it was in the price range.
Yeah.
And like I remember test driving it, and it kind of felt like a little race car. Like it just had a tape deck in it. Yeah, because it was when I got my 626 that we upgraded the stereo, and like weird to think about now because like you get like your phone and that just like syncs to your stereo now.
Mm-hmm.
My CD player at the time, this was super cool. You could hand program in all the CDs, so when you'd put your CD in, it would display in digital letters that it was Fear Factory.
Oh, yeah.
You
right.
know, obsolete. And like you could like, and so I did that for like, I had like 50 CDs that like I had hand fucking programmed in there, like just like up, down cursoring, like with like the fast forward buttons basically
Okay.
to spell out the band names or the album names. And you could program it in there. But then if your car battery ever died,
Oh, it's just
fucking
erases.
wiped the memory. And so like that.
So how much time do you think you would have spent doing that?
Oh, dude, no, I spent like 6 hours, like over the course of a weekend.
I can't imagine just that ... because you have to go through the whole alphabet to get to a letter.
Yeah, you couldn't. And like now again, how laughable it is that like your computer just reads everything and it's like,
Yeah,
oh, hey,
yeah.
I want this new album, download. Okay, boom, done. And then it displays it everywhere. But like, yeah, you had to program it. And then like the only thing it actually just did was it said the name of the track, or the name. Wow. But then, yeah, my battery died in my 626 and just fucking erased everything. And I was like, oh, damn it. Like,
Did you do it again?
I think I might have, like, honestly, because I was like, I gotta do it. And like, why did I buy the CD player if I don't use all the features of it? And it's
Right.
like, yeah, that didn't really matter at all. So, but yeah, I had the 626 that I had that all the way until until I graduated high school. I remember, and I hope he loved it as much as I did, but I sold it to Phil Weiser.
Oh, okay.
I don't know whatever happened to it after Phil had it.
Was
So-
that his first car?
I don't know. You should ask him. Phil,
I
if you're
will.
listening, was the 626 your first car? So, the one thing, it didn't have an antenna because it had somehow gotten ripped out. So like the previous owner made this like pigtail like antenna. He just took like a piece of copper wire and like just stuck it in there. And like that's back when you still actually needed an antenna for like having a radio.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like, so just like, it's like quirky little things I remember about that. Other memorable things I think like about my first car, I think it was probably mostly learning to do those square corners. Like that thing, it was so fun to drive because it was compact. And the other thing I do remember, now that I like think about this and ponder it, do you remember Dan Schultz? He went to Century and BHS.
God, I know the name. I can't place the face.
So I bring up Dan Schultz because when Actar 911 did the talent show
Yeah.
at BHS,
Yeah.
we did the Rob Zombie song More Human. Well, it was White Zombie. It was More Human Than Human.
Yes.
So we played that, and then we played two originals. God, what
I
were they?
remember that. That was awesome.
Yeah, so
It was so loud.
we
and-
did Sabotage by the Beastie Boys.
Oh, yes.
And More Human Than Human, and then we played the song Jelly Beans, and it was about
And you had that sample of on the White Zombie song, that beginning part too. That was dope.
yes, we had made that on the 808.
Okay.
We had made it on the original. Nick had an 808, I think.
Nice.
And we programmed the
Yeah.
but then we couldn't get it, or did we have it on a? Did Nick have it on a pedal? I'm
I
trying to
thought
think.
you had like a whole computer or something set up back there.
So we did. So Dan Schultz played. Maybe he did the sample for the More Human Than Human, because then he also did the record scratching on Sabotage.
Okay.
But we had bought him just a cheap fucking Fisher Price like record player.
Nice.
So it was so terrible. And then he just bought like any record and he was just like scratching the hell out of it. Like, but the other notable thing about that performance, And there's a yearbook picture of it too, but Shauna Schultz, she did the intro with the...
Oh, yes. Yeah, she was the female.
Yes. Yep. So, but there's a picture of all of us. So it was me and Daz and Nick, Shauna, and Dan were all in this picture. And Dan did he wore like fishnets on his arms.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Who
getting
did?
back.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm getting back to my first car though. So it was a story about Dan Schultz. And then Daz did some like weird skeleton makeup that was like actually like looked pretty cool. Or he did like muscles or something like that. And then Nick did something pretty artistic. Me not being artistic, I just did half my body blue and half white. So I fucking did like Braveheart. I'm like, that was the most like cool thing that I could think of doing. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, there's a yearbook picture of it. And I think it was Battle of the Bands that we did. So Dan Schultz and we used to go to lunch every day. And he was in Akhtar for the Battle of the Bands. But Dan Schultz drove this little, I think it was a Mazda pickup.
Okay.
But it was kind of like, actually, somebody else you should do for this show is Rhea Arnson.
Yeah, that
Do you
Love.
remember her Chevy Love?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think it was awesome.
Rhea lives in Fergus Falls. Well, so yeah, Rhea had that little Chevy Love. And so Dan had this Mazda pickup that was kind of like it. But I think it was a little bit bigger, but similar kind of just a little 2-door pickup,
Yeah.
like little
I
4-cylinder.
wish I could get something like that today.
Yeah.
I don't want a big truck like you have now, but
Well, I have
a
a
small. I
mid-sized
used to
pickup.
have a Ranger.
Well, yeah. Have you seen the Ford Maverick now?
No.
I've actually heard really good things about people who have bought in them because it's a 4-cylinder, but it's a small, like low clearance pickup. You can get them pretty base model and like they're actually pretty, I think, sturdy for like just in town running around. Like you're not going to like, you could pull like some kayaks obviously, or like a little storage trailer or something like that. That shouldn't be an issue, but you're not going to pull like a fucking camper or something with it, I don't think. But,
Right.
So Dan Schultz, though, back to my story.
Yeah.
We're not talking about your future car
Not yet.
purchases. Oh, not yet. Okay. I didn't know that was the format. So I haven't prepared. So Dan had this little Chevy, or no, it was the Mazda pickup. And he and I always used to really try and parallel park in the most like ridiculously like hard spots.
Okay.
So like kind of had a competition to see who could parallel park like with the least amount of space. And that was another thing that like
I like it.
I just learned like by doing, but like I mean like with Nordwall learning how to drive clutch, like I mean it was just he and I like fucking through it together, It's just like so Dan and I would like parallel park though, and I remember one time specifically there was a flatbed truck. So it was like a semi and then it had a trailer and the wheels ended where the wheels of the trailer ended, but then like the trailer extended for like another like 2 feet.
Yeah.
So there was kind of like a lip.
Yep.
And I remember I pulled my Honda in and I swung the hood right under the trailer because that was the only way. And then like the trailer came right up to my windshield, but I fit it in there. And it was like a Tetris move with my Civic with my Civic. And it just looked so cool. And like Dan was so impressed. And so he and I always had these contests of like who could parallel park in like the most ridiculous spot or like
That
the
is
tightest
ridiculous.
space.
Though.
Like,
if that guy just backed up an inch, your windshield would have been gone.
oh yeah, right. And again, things I never cared about.
Yeah,
I'd like,
or think about.
Why would he do that?
Yeah.
It's like, well, because he doesn't see this tiny little like jelly bean of a car.
Yeah, I
behind
did that
his-
with my scooter for some reason where I parked like right behind this truck.
Oh.
And yeah, they wound up.
Wait. When did you have a scooter?
I still have it.
So
I got it fixed, but
Okay.
I don't know why I parked at this spot. It was along the building and there was a truck parked there too. And I think the building kind of came out in front of them, which I didn't notice. And for them to get back out, they'd have to back out. But I put my scooter right behind the truck. I don't know why. And then when I got back out, it was propped back up on the side of the wall, but all fucked up. And the truck was gone. And I was like, what? So I called the police right away, and then turns out it was one of the workers, and he just kind of went around the building. I'm not sure why, but it seemed a little odd.
So like
anyway.
somebody owned up to it though?
Yeah.
Oh, that's at least
Yeah.
nice. I mean, but
Yeah.
that's still like
It wound up being their fault, but really it was mine for being stupid.
Yeah. So how big is your scooter?
Well, it's just under 40 cc, so I don't need a motorcycle license.
Okay, yeah.
But it goes about 40.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it like a Ruckus or?
It's a Yamaha.
Okay. I'm just thinking like style-wise, what's it look like?
Oh,
Is it like more of a Vespa thingy or like is it a...
it's got fatter tires.
Okay.
But
yeah.
it's dark blue and just pretty average scooter.
Okay.
I would say.
So,
But it's got more, a little more body to it.
Yeah.
And I can fit maybe a 12-pack in the seat. If I would open it up and spread it out, I could probably fit more.
Sure.
But yeah.
Okay. And so Lenny bought, the reason I ask is like, we've been talking about getting some scooters and like Lenny's actually way more proactive than I am. And, so Lenny persuaded me to get my motorcycle license. She's like, let's do this together.
Yeah. Cool.
And so we went through like the M-State, so the Minnesota State, like a BATE program or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like you do behind the wheel basically with a rented motorcycle. And she actually ended up buying a motorcycle too. And so she bought this really cool little like, I think it's called like a Leaf-On. It's like a Chinese model bike, but it kind of looks like a Mad Max bike. It's 200 cc's. It's a little 6-speed like transmission. And it's got some get up and go. And like, honestly, I probably drive it more than she does now, but like, I'll kind of do the same thing if I got to run to the grocery store. And like, so I live probably about like 10 miles out of town, out of Fergus Falls. And so it's about a 10-minute drive. And like a lot of it's through city streets and stuff like that. I only got like probably like a 5 minutes of highway. And then like I basically get into town. But it's really fun, like taking the motorcycle in the summer, doing that, like just for errands or something like that. But
How many miles to the gallon, you think?
50.
Yeah, my scooter's 100.
Yeah, I mean, like it's
awesome.
ridiculous. I'll drive it all summer long and fill it up once, and I mean just to do like errands and stuff like that, not taking it out on like joyrides or anything like that. But yeah, those things that's ridiculous. Like I've almost wanted to buy some saddlebags for it, but
yeah, me too for my scooter.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But
like,
the more weight I put on it, it slows it down.
Yeah, that's
so I can go 40 downhill for sure.
Sure,
and it probably goes about 45.
Okay.
But when I hit uphill, it'll just slow down sometimes, and I'll have cars right behind me, just like in Dumb and Dumber, and I'm like, I'm trying to make it, and I'll start trying to rock myself up the hill a little bit. It's not working, but it looks like I'm just humping. Yeah.
So what's your helmet look like? Because I'm trying to get a visual now of this like middle-aged man with a white beard.
I also have like a World War II like Swedish army helmet.
Okay.
And just one little green strap that goes under your chin.
Okay.
And I have another helmet that's just kind of, it's all scratched to hell, kind of whitish with a black stripe. And
okay, are they? Yeah. So I get the Swedish war helmet. I mean, but the other helmet, is it like a 3/4 or just like an open face or a full helmet?
I guess it would be what, 3/4.
Okay.
Yeah. Just that top part with the straps, and then it's got kind of that leather part that goes over the ears.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. I think sometimes they're called like almost not bells, but like I can visualize it in my head. So yeah, like
and I think and I had a toxic shock syndrome sticker on the front, but I've dropped the helmet so many times it's kind of scratched away. So yeah,
that we've got like wearing like real helmets obviously for motorcycle riding, but Lenny also.
Hey, I got real helmets, man. I mean,
it's good. I mean, so like I'm just trying to think of now the visual of a you with a Swedish war helmet,
going
like
15 up a hill,
driving up, just like just struggle
rocking.
busting it up like fucking Washington. Lenny also bought it's a Coleman mini bike. So if you've ever been to Runnings.
Yes. No, I've been on one of these.
Yes.
Somebody else was talking about one of those, and I wiped out on one.
Oh.
Adam and I had a mutual friend out of town.
Okay.
We used to go out there and sometimes ride horse or play with whatever toys they had out there. In this case, that Coleman and another one that was similar. And we took these down the road a little bit, went to one end, back to the other. And we were kind of just stopping and bullshitting for a bit. And then we were we decided to head back, but I wanted to peel out a little bit. So I said, well, see ya. And then I peeled out and I turned, and then I just lost control and started wobbling back and forth. And then I flew off and I went rolling and my shoe flew off. And I got up, just hobbled. I hit my ribs pretty good, kind of knocked the wind out of me.
Yeah.
And he was just laughing at me.
No, those fucking things are
It was
so...
embarrassing, but I was in pain. And
Well, yeah.
we got back to the house, and I just had to sit on the couch for a little bit.
So I have a similar story in that, so Linny bought this thing, and she bought it from her Uncle Steve. And Uncle Steve sold it to her, like brought it out to the house. And the original time we had experienced this was out at Steve's farm in a tiny town called Alfred, North Dakota. And we were all driving it around, and this was back, I think, when I still drank. And so, like, I was pretty shit-faced, like, driving this thing around. And it was just a blast.
Yeah.
And Linny's dad, I don't think he was drunk really by any means, but, like, just hadn't been on it before. And, like, Steve's like, no, careful, AJ. When you quick hit the throttle, that thing kind of bucks a little bit. I mean, AJ's like, yeah, whatever, I'm fine. So he hops on and he just guns it. And like the one thing I remember is like his head just fucking like went straight back. And he's like, whoa, shit. And like just goes. And like, then he kind of like you couldn't stop it. Mm-hmm. And because he's like kind of wobbling around, and he almost went off like an embankment, like a retaining wall embankment. He like turns at the last second and like finally just like lets go of the throttle because Steve's screaming at him like, AJ, just like fucking put the brakes on. And like he finally got it to stop, and he's like, yeah, I'm done with that. So we knew that this thing was kind of dangerous and touchy on the throttle. Mm-hmm. And I was driving it this last summer, and we've already had it for like 4 years. And I was turning around actually in my not in my driveway, but on the road that kind of goes by our house. And I made a wide turn. So I went into my neighbor's ditch, and then I turned. And as I came out of the turn, same thing, fucking gunned it. But I slipped out on some rocks. And so I'm like, I just go straight across the road, and right on the other side of our road, we have it, like it drops off, not drops off, but it goes sharply down like about 2 feet. And then goes right into a bunch of trees.
Yeah.
And like buckthorn bush. So it's just shit, nasty thicket shit. And I just fucking launched the motorbike, like the Coleman, right over the road like that, hanging on, and just went straight into the fucking trees and ditch, and like flew over the handlebars and like just killed the bike and like flew into the trees. And so like nobody saw me, so I'm like, well, thank God.
Well,
so,
of course,
like,
you got to get up and look around, make sure no one's looking.
Like, oh, my fucking leg kind of hurts. And so then, like, later that day, I think we were swimming, or it was the next day we were swimming, and I had my just trunks on, and my daughter was like, Daddy, what's wrong with your leg? And I looked down, and like on the inside of my thigh, I seriously just had a softball size, like black and purple mark from where I like just smashed my leg on the handlebar. And I'm like, I guess that's from when Daddy fell off the motorbike. Daddy, were you wearing your helmet? No, Daddy wasn't. I was like, fuck. So like felt really, really like ashamed, because then obviously not being safe. But like, yeah, those things like they'll fuck you up if you're not like watching, and like, but they're fun. Like I like having more toys now. Like I think it's not about like driving the new best car. Like I'm fine driving like a 10-year-old pickup truck that's reliable, that hauls what I want it to haul, and like gets me to where I want to go. But then we're kind of free to buy like kayaks and canoes, and like I bought a boat this summer. Did I tell you that?
No, you didn't.
So this is not. Can we talk about boats
please.
on my first car?
Because I want to talk about my canoe.
Oh, well.
No, not really.
Okay.
But that's like when you brought up toys, I'm the same way. We got our scooter, we have our canoe, and then we got paddle boards. Last year, so that's dope as hell. Let's talk about your boat, though.
Oh, so we've just been kicking around the idea of like, okay, so we live on the Otter Tail River, and we've always just had kayaks and canoes. Yeah, and like not just, it's super awesome. Like it's lovely. We're able to kayak like up a couple miles and down a couple miles on our river. And so we just feel really lucky that we've got that. We've got a little dock. But we've always kind of like kicked around the idea, because a lot of our neighbors actually have boats, just like little open hulled, like 14-foot fishing boats with a little tiller steer, something like that. Nobody's got like jet skis or, like big ass fishing boats or anything like that. So I think it was Lenny who just saw, like, we were both kind of just looking for boats. Like, we've always just kind of casually looked. And she sent me a link and she's like, dude, there's a 14-foot fishing boat for sale for $250 in Perham, Minnesota. And it's kind of like a lime green outside, or like a seafoam green, maybe. Mm-hmm. And then it had a 25 watt, I think, electric motor on it.
Oh, cool.
So no gas engine, but then this is where I completely scored. So my dad and uncle, so my uncle actually has a sailboat, or used to have a sailboat. And that sailboat had a little 8 horsepower, like, trolling motor on it. And they finally sold the sailboat. And then my dad told me, like, last winter, he's like, well, we're going to sell the Tohatsu. That's this little trolling motor. And so he's like, if you know anybody that wants like a little 8 horsepower trolling motor, let me know. And I'm like, yeah, nobody. Because who do I know that wants a boat motor, right? And I kind of just forgot about it. And then, like, when I saw the boat, I'm like, hey, Dad, does Dennis still have has he still got the Tohatsu for sale? And my dad's like, yeah, I just call him and see if he'll give it to you or sell it to you. And so I do. And Dennis is like, well, yeah, just have your dad just take it home and you can just have it. And so, like, I scored on a little 8 horsepower, like, outboard motor.
Yeah.
And so then I went and got the boat for like $250.
Yeah.
And that thing does, like,
a little trailer.
Oh yeah, the tiny little trailer. Like, I mean, easily pull it with my truck. The boat tops out at 15 miles an hour, but like for where we're at, like on a little river, or to like take it to like Beers Lake, like on Maplewood State Park, or like, was it Battle Lake, the one that's motorized? So there's like some non-motorized boat lakes, like kind of where we're at in Minnesota, but there's a lot of like just small little lakes to like go fishing. And like, I actually took my son fishing for the first time this year, and he caught his first fish, like all on his own. And that was just like a really cool experience. Like, we're just kind of trolling up the otter tail, and like he just dropped a little piece of fake bait in on a line, and it was just trolling behind, and caught himself like a little 2-pound smallmouth bass. And like, I don't know, it's like, those are really fun experiences for being able to live where we live.
Yeah.
And like I feel really fortunate to be able to do that. But yeah, so I got a new boat this year, so I don't really give a shit if I have. And like, new cars don't excite me anymore. I got one new car in like in my life, and that cool factor wore off after like 2 months. Like, I was like, so like prior to, so I had the Civic, then I had the 89 Mazda 626, sold that. Then I didn't have a car for a while because I was in the service. I got back from when I was in Korea and Texas, and I bought a Toyota Corolla. So I had a 1995 Toyota Corolla. It was a maroon one. I had that car for like 15 years, I think, or 13 years. And I drove that car everywhere. And then after that, then I bought a Kia Sorento. Then I sold that, and then I drove a Toyota Prius for a long time. I finally got rid of this Prius, and I was like, I've never had a brand new car. And it was like right after COVID, I think, when like the supply chain was sort of like kind of fucked, and like everything was taking a while, and like semiconductors were like not going for cars, or like not being made fast enough for cars. And like, I remember like looking for a used RAV4, but based on like where the market was in RAV4s, it was actually cheaper to buy a brand new RAV4 versus a cheaper RAV4, like a used one. Okay. So I ended up buying a brand new like 2022 RAV4. Yeah. And it was sweet. Like, it was cool. Like, it had all these awesome bells and whistles, and it was like, I don't know, really like comfortable to drive. But then it was like, why do I have a brand new car that I'm always worried about like shit breaking or being like messed up, and I don't really want to take it anywhere, and then I'm really anal about it, and then like what I really need is a mid-sized truck, because we had this really big Ford F-150, which is just a big piece of shit truck that like every time I drove it, it was like, hey, give me $400. Like, oh, cool. Like, hey, spark plug, like a coil pack went out, or like your engine lights on, or fucking transmission got locked up one time, so I couldn't even put it into like drive. Oh. Like, yeah, they had to replace like a gearbox. It was like $600. I'm like, fuck yeah, I drive this truck like 500 miles a year. Yeah. And it breaks like every time I drive it. So I was just like, no, I'm done with that. We finally sold the truck. And I'm like, I don't need like a brand new car. I need a mid-sized pickup. So from selling the shitty truck and my RAV4, then I got this Toyota Tacoma. So yeah, which now is like, I'm a dad. Like that. Yep, this is like perfect dad car. Like, oh sure. So because it like hauls kids, but it hauls shit, and like I can pull a camper and
Hauls kids and hauls shits.
shits.
What'd you say?
It hauls kids and shit. And shit, not
Okay.
like just shit stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So not human waste.
Right.
So, although I think the people we have for septic service, this is a total just random aside, because we have a septic tank on our property. So we call the people, they're called Nature's Call. It's like, we turn your shit into our bread. Like that's what's on, like that's their tagline.
Okay.
And it's great because they right? Like they suck shit for a living. But
Yeah.
it's like something to the effect of like, your shit is our bread.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I get it.
and-
Like they're making money.
From poop.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's
They're
supposed to
not
be
somehow turning shit into actual bread.
negative. No,
Right.
no, that is not
Okay.
yet, I don't think, a thing.
Well, I don't know. Bill Gates maybe can do something like that, but
I bet Ancient Aliens probably has a theory on that, and they probably got an episode about, did ancient Egyptians really turn human fecal matter into food?
these ancient astronaut
According
theorists.
to ancient astronaut theorists, the answer is resounding yes. Like, was George Washington an alien? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, fuck yeah.
Did
like,
he eat his own shit? Probably.
Probably. Anyway, so I do remember smoking constantly and consistently in all my cars.
Oh, of course.
And like, even as a high schooler, like that is kind of weird to me to think about. Like, I used to like smoke cigarettes in my room with my parents home. And like my dad would come down and he's like, hey, don't smoke in the house. Like he would just tell me.
You're like my brother. He used to do that.
And then I had the gall to tell my dad, I'm like, I remember this one night, like my mom was out somewhere. It was just my dad, and it was a snowstorm. And I got invited to go over to a friend's house that I had a crush on. And it was, so you bleep her name out, but like I had, like, 'cause I never got
I
go. You have to. Like, I never got to go over to her house, but like we were talking on the phone. And she's like, yeah, I don't care if you like, my parents are home. If you like want to come over and hang out, like my parents say it's fine if you want to like walk over here. And it was super cold out and like blizzardy conditions. And I was like, I will do whatever, like to try and walk over there. And I went and tried to sell my dad on it. And he's like, absolutely not. He's like, it's a blizzard. He's like, who? He's like, no, they live like across Washington from us. Like they lived over on like Ryan Drive or something. And like I lived on 5th Street, which a doable walk in normal conditions. I mean, it's like, but again, and like, so I remember like, I was kind of like pouty and I was like, well, whatever, fuck you. And like, then I went back down into my room and I was like stewing and, listening to music and being angsty. And I was like, oh, I'm going to smoke a cigarette. And like, he comes down and he's like, you can't smoke in the house. And I was, I'm not smoking. It's incense. And he's like, no, it's fucking not. Like, who's fooled by that? Like, nobody's fooled by that. Like that does not smell like incense. It smells like a cigarette. And like, but I used to just smoke in the house and like in my parents' house. Like
Made me think of
and I smoked in my car all the time. Yeah.
When you're talking about trying to get through a blizzard.
Oh yeah.
How many like homesteaders died back in the frontier days because of their hormones? Just trying to get to like some other woman's house in North Dakota. It's like 3 miles away, but they want to get some. Guaranteed. I'm sure there's been a few.
I guess there probably are some cases, of people who like froze to death. So not on a hormonal level, but there's a children's book about Buffalo Alice. And like, so my aunt and uncle got it for my daughter.
Okay.
And the book is called Buffalo Alice, and it's written by somebody in North Dakota. And it's about the origins of the name of the town Buffalo Alice. And it's about, lo and behold, a girl named Alice who had a pet buffalo. And she raised the buffalo, like she found it in a snowstorm. She raised it up, whatever. It helps her plow the fields. I have no idea if any of this is true. It doesn't matter. This is the point of the story.
Yeah.
So the end of the story comes is that during a snowstorm one night, during a blizzard, Alice has to go out and like shut some animals in the barn. And she gets lost in the snowstorm. And so her buffalo comes out to save her. And the next morning they wake up. And so like he cuddles around her like all night. And the next morning they wake up and they can't see the house. And they start wandering and looking for the house, and they've never been seen again. And so I'm reading this story to my fucking daughter.
Fuck?
Like, just, like, so my Uncle Bob and Aunt Lee got this book for us. And like, I'm reading like, oh, Buffalo Alice is a story about like a girl and her buffalo. Oh, Vera, let's read this. This will be sweet. And we're just reading it. And I'm like, and I get to the end. I'm like, don't you fucking dare be dead. You better. And they've never been seen again. And I'm like, she's like, Daddy, where'd they go? And I'm like, come on, really? And it's like, don't worry, they're still looking for how to get home. That's like,
so you just start making up the end.
Yeah, and I'm like, they're still out there, honey. And I'm like, I kind of want to write to this guy and be like, dude, like, you need to warn parents who are going to read this cold. Like, and maybe I didn't do my part as a parent and pre-read the book, but I'm just like,
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought
I didn't think I had to
really.
fact check or like, check the appropriateness of a Blizzard death story, like, to read to my 3-year-old.
I always thought Buffalo Alice was 2 towns.
It is, I think, yes.
And it's just the sign that was like Buffalo Alice.
So I think
people,
and I
And
don't,
Tony, he was in a band called Buffalo Alice.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised about the number of bands that did and now currently exist. Mm-hmm. So there was the band Absaraka.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, I remember playing with those guys and always being intimidated growing up because their drummer, he had a Kevlar coated snare drum. So like the head was like a marching drum head.
Okay.
And that was the time when, like, I mean, it was like, they were a very new metal band, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
But like, he had really nice drums and like his snare drum was like tuned just like piccolo high. And I was like, whoa, those guys are like edgy, right? You know, they had like, but I couldn't get over their band name, right? I mean,
Absaraka. Right. Yeah. Sounds gnarly, but
sort of, but then kind of like, wait, but growing up in North Dakota, it's like,
yeah.
You mean
it's
the
a town?
Oh, okay. Or yeah, Buffalo Alice. Like that reminds me of like Buffalo Springfield. Like, so, I mean, I sort of maybe get that, but have you kept up with BJ Moore at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
So he's in a band called Ariska.
Yes.
So, and like, I want to be like, well, I want to be in a band called Fingal. Cause
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
I mean, it's just like, it's just and maybe it actually means something else. It probably does.
Yeah.
I've never thought to look into that.
I'm gonna start a band called Devil's Lake.
Oh, edgy.
Yeah, a little bit. Dunn Center.
Pembina. I mean,
I used to call somebody corrected me, but I always called it Pembina. I didn't know. They're like, what? I'm like, Pembina.
So,
Pembina? Yeah,
Pembina,
yeah.
Pembina, like, I don't know, like, kind of like how you sometimes remember song lyrics and like, no, it has to be what those are.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
no, that's not it. Huh?
I've had so many wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a Rancid song, Vigilante Sidekick or something like that. But
Okay.
What he's saying is, I had a dream I was a vigilante sidekick. And I thought he was saying, I had a dream I had a midget inside me. And I was like, wow, that's really fucked up.
Yeah. Well, I was very disheartened when we talked about Tool, and there's, is it Salival? That's got their live stuff on it.
I don't recall.
That came out between Lateralis and 10,000 Days, I think. Or maybe right before Lateralis did. But it had some live tracks on it. It had like No Quarter. It was a cover of Led Zeppelin. And then it had like a couple different versions of like Push It and something else. But they had a secret track. The refrain is Maynard's dick. But I always thought, like, he sings it really nicely.
Uh-huh.
And I always thought he said Better Days. And so I'm thinking it's like this super inspirational song, kind of about like, yeah, this is really cool. And then I think I was washing dishes at Fiesta Villa, and a guy named Jeff Conover, he's like, what the fuck are you singing? And I'm like, the lyrics. And he's saying, it's like climb a mountain or make a mountain out of a molehill, or climb a mountain, something up onto Maynard's dick. And basically it's just I'm like, you're fucking with me. He's like, no, like, listen to it. And I'm like, oh, that's what he's saying. Yeah. Shoot. And like the song completely like changed meanings. And now I'm like, oh, like I had this like, yeah, this is a really cool song. No, it's not. And no, he did not have a midget inside him. Right. Yeah. It's just like,
right.
I don't know. I made up, like, I listened to Deftones all the time in my first car. That was probably like
part of your soundtrack.
part of my soundtrack. Yeah. I remember at the time it was really cool to still make mixtapes.
Yes.
So I had a tape deck, and Tim Sealer had made me a mixtape of Deftones, but he did it in a really cool artistic way. So he had a multi-disc CD changer, and so he just put all three like Deftones, or he put like Deftones and Sepultura or something like that into a CD changer, and then he just hit record and shuffle. And so then it would just like go like Deftones to like, so it would play Deftones songs not in the order of the CD, or
and just random.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Like add in Sepultura or something like that, or like a 6 Feet Under song. But you would just kind of do it randomly, I remember. So I remember listening to a lot of Deftones, Sepultura, Korn. Fear Factory was also. So Fear Factory was the first concert I ever went to. Like
Where is that?
It was at the Fargo Civic Center.
All right.
It was Fear Factory, Monster Magnet, and Rob Zombie.
Okay.
And I didn't care about Monster Magnet, but they had just come out with that song, Space Lord Motherfucker. Like, do you remember that song?
I probably would.
Okay, let's not
if they
go
sing
back
it,
to
but
it.
sure.
Yeah. So, and those are probably the wrong lyrics. It's probably something completely different. But yeah, so I went to see Fear Factory. They had just come out with the track the album Obsolete. And I remember the soundtrack from Ozfest, Ozfest 99 or 97. I think 97 was very influential. That had like Cold Chamber on it. I also remember listening. The Crow soundtrack was also very influential.
Oh, that was fantastic.
That was like a good, because we covered The Badge by Pantera in that band that I was in, Actar.
Nice.
And then I think Nick even had the sample recorded. Because we did things kind of like DIY, because we had saw that band Sofa Glue play from Seattle, and they had a really cool sample machine, but the guitar player had a tape deck.
You did air quotes again.
I'm hoping you'll. I was hoping you might. Yeah. What? Fuck you. So he had a sampler, but the sampler was just a tape deck with a 1/4-inch out on it.
Okay.
And then it went into the mixing board. And
nice.
out. And so like he would just play samples of like that he had recorded
Just out of cassette?
Yeah.
That's great.
And then he would just do that and then like press stop and then like play his guitar. And I just thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
But we did something similar to that. And it was maybe through Nick's pedal board. I can't remember. But
oh, yeah.
But yeah, so we did The Badge. So the Crow soundtrack was really good. Deftones, Sepultura, Korn, like I said. Incubus.
Yeah.
I remember listening.
I remember when you got that album.
Yeah.
You were jamming that pretty loud. I'd be in the back seat. You and Josh would be up front talking and listening to music really loud. I can't hear a damn thing in the back.
Yeah, because I misspoke when I thought that I had gotten the nice CD player in my Honda. So I got that in the Mazda, and then I had saved up, because I had a paper route too. That was one of my first jobs. And I lucked out because I had a paper route on the street that I lived on.
Oh, wow.
And the next 2 streets over.
Nice.
So they would deliver papers right to my front door, and then I'd just get up and just start slinging papers for 3 blocks.
Cool.
So yeah, I saved up paper route money, and what else was I had worked at McDonald's for a little bit, and then I worked as a car hop at A&W.
Okay.
And I delivered food on rollerblades.
No way.
Yeah, I did.
What? Really?
Yeah, this was in high school. I can't like this.
I remember when they
I'm sort of embarrassed to
started with
admit
that
it, but it was kind of
restaurant.
cool because
Right.
my only job was to deliver food. So like I never bothered learning the till. Like I couldn't take an order. Like, and they're like, how can you not take an order? Like somebody's like, I'd like a cheeseburger and like fries. And I'd be like, could somebody take this order? Cause I'm on my rollerblades.
You're like Beavis or Butthead.
Kind of. Well, and then like if I would rollerblade inside, I would get grease all over my wheels from being in the kitchen area.
Damn.
And so then you'd go outside and slip all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be delivering food.
Yeah, no wonder that didn't last long.
Yeah, no.
It couldn't have, because I don't remember it, it was just so brief.
It was when A&W, I mean, they did
But
have...
the thing is, like, I didn't have a car there then, so I wasn't going through the drive-through and getting that service.
Yeah, and what a service it was. like totally just like scaled back. Like it was...
Did they have the window things? Trays that would go...
and they never worked.
Oh,
like,
of course.
because the food was so fucking heavy. You know, like you get like chili cheese dogs and like huge burgers, and you try and like
Big Coke.
hang it on there and just fucking snaps off. And like, I know that happened at least once or twice.
Yeah.
Like, And then what are you supposed to do? I'm like, fucking tray broke. Like, cool. Like, and like, I just didn't care. You know, like the main reason that I wanted that job is because I
What's
like
your outfit? You got roller skates. I'm thinking booty shorts.
rollerblades. So I got to wear my rollerblades. And so that was
edgy.
Yeah. So I always had like a pair of K2s on.
But it's 90s. Remember that movie Air? God
Airbud.
damn. Air. What?
Airbud.
Airbud. Yep, that's it. God damn. I can't remember it. Anyway, it was a rollerblading movie.
Oh. No, I don't. I'm trying to think of it.
Yeah,
but
early 90s.
you know
one.
what popped
Doesn't
into my
matter.
head though? Like not Mac and Me.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So can I like just go down a dirt road for a second? The first time I saw Mac and Me.
Please do.
Okay. So I was an adult.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
I was stone cold sober.
Yep.
I was in Phoenix. My wife went out with her sister Maddie. They went out to eat and they went out to have a beer. And we were with our son Shepherd. It was his first like plane ride. We took Shepherd down to Phoenix to meet Maddie and like spend some time there. So Maddie and Lenny go out.
And this movie's from like 85, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. So I just never watched it growing up. I had no idea what it was. And so Shepard's asleep in the other room. Like Maddie had this little kind of guest house that we could stay in. And maybe we rented it through Airbnb, doesn't matter. But like, so Shepard's asleep in the other kind of bedroom area. I'm out just watching TV quietly and I'm flipping through the channels and Comedy Central comes on and it's Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh.
And
cool.
like it was the reboot, right?
Yeah.
That they did very briefly, or like they did a season of reboots.
They've done a
think.
few different reboots.
But it was with the original voices, and I'd never seen Mac and Me, and then the first time I saw it was the Mystery Science Theater 3000 guys just roasting it. Stone cold sober, like I could not contain, like I almost peed my pants laughing, like where he goes over the cliff,
Yes,
right on the wheelchair, and like, just the whole McDonald's party and how creepy that is. But like, there's so many amazing scenes, but their commentary, honestly, is priceless. Like that is one.
I gotta see that.
That is just like one of the best episodes I think ever of Mystery Science Theater 3000. But yeah, it was the first time I saw Mac and Me. So my uniform at A&W was just a uniform, just some black pants.
Okay.
I think some like teal shirt that was made out of like, I don't know. They're like those heavy kind of boxy polo shirts that have like a different collar on them.
But you don't have like a cassette player on your hip and headphones on and...
No, I think I had to wear a baseball cap, and it was like a really corny one that had like the point at the top, sort of.
Oh, right.
Like the really cheap ones, almost like a trucker hat, but not stylish in the least. Just said like A&W, and it was cloth. But yeah, I delivered food there for like 3 months, I think. I know it was at least for a little bit, but yeah, never learned how to use the till. Never learned how to serve customers. It's just only wanted to rollerblade. So,
I just want a blade.
I was hardcore into inline skating. That was like my thing.
Yeah.
Like I really owned that. And I used to skate a lot, but my only really friends to skate with were Cody Munson and Chad Anderson.
Yeah. I remember I came across one of your tapes.
Oh, God.
One time you guys have a
Some
skating
videos.
tape.
Oh man, I'm sure that's just...
hitting some curbs and some rails.
We used to go to Highland Acres. That was the elementary school.
Yeah.
They had a really low handrail, and I remember Chad Anderson specifically could do all sorts of different tricks on it. But like, I was really happy that I could just do I could just slide down it. Like I did it probably like 3 times in my life. Yeah, I was definitely a very proud rollerblader.
Yeah.
So much so I had a backpack that would carry my rollerblades. So I could like skate to school and then put my shoes on and then put my skates in my backpack, carry them around. And my backpack at the time also had a Camelback.
Oh,
so
cool.
it had, yeah. So
Did you put water in there?
No. No.
Of course.
But the other story I was going to tell about Dawes and my first car. So so I broke my neck, and again, they did physical therapy. I had to be in a neck brace right away, and it was just one of those little soft-sided ones, so it was like a collar. Mm-hmm. And then like a week later, they fitted me for like a better one, and this one had a chin rest on it. So the cool thing about it is it strapped in super tight, and then I couldn't really move my head up or down, so I had to really like do the Batman thing.
Yeah.
but it really helped me fall asleep in class. So like in English, I remember I would just basically shut my eyes and just put my head down, and my chin would just rest perfectly on the chin rest, and my neck was completely supported. And so I'm just like, it's like I could just soundly sleep for like a half hour. So I would do that a lot. But Daz, for whatever reason, if you like in high school, we had an insult. We would just say, little girl. You're such a little girl. And like no matter what somebody else said, you would just reply with, oh, little girl, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I'd like Matt Perry did it, and like Nordwall definitely did it, and Daz got into it. And like Daz, after I broke my neck, we were in chemistry class, and I had the neck brace on. And he's like, oh, little girl, did you break your neck? And I'm like, fuck you, I broke my neck, yeah. And he's like, oh, did little girl get into a car accident? And I'm like, yep. And like, he was just pushing me, and he wouldn't stop. And it was just little girl. And like, it got to me, and like, I was like, fuck you. And like, I went, and I remember like I left the group and like just went and sat at my desk, and like I refused to participate. And our chemistry teacher, Mr. Klein, was like, what are you doing? I'm like, you're making fun of me. It's not nice.
But I mean, if you bring something up like, oh, this weekend I'm going to be playing at whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So.
No. Oh, I just ripped ass. So loud. Unintelligently, it was right into my coat that I'm sitting on. So I'm going to put it on and just like wrap myself in a big fart.